What's going on, guys? This is Saturday Afternoon Wrestling. It is a great day to talk about wrestling. There is so much going on. I'm recording this midweek, which is different for me. I usually like to wait till the weekends, but with WrestlePalooza and AEW All Out both happening this coming Saturday, I wanted to make sure I hit on some news things, stuff that's kind of just stuck with me since I've seen it. I've been meaning to record multiple issues and things coming up, so I apologize for the inconsistent recording schedule, but some stuff I just kind of couldn't let slide. I kept thinking about it. I kept coming back to it. So I wanted to make sure I touched on some of that stuff before we get to the weekend and these big shows kind of overtake the news cycle. I wanted to start with the return of AJ Lee. She came back after a 10-year absence 2 weeks ago to provide reinforcements to her husband CM Punk, and they are now feuding with the other real-life couple, Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins, and they're going to have a huge match at WrestlePalooza, which is this coming Saturday night. And it's really good to see her back. I was surprised just how big the reaction was because of how generational wrestling fans are. Like, it's been 10 years. It's almost like a full generation of wrestling fans would come in and pick up watching and pick up the fandom. So I wasn't sure who was going to know, but then you see so many current women on the roster all have pictures of them when they were younger, either like crying, taking a photo with AJ Lee, or dressed as AJ Lee, and you really kind of see the wide range of her influence. The other big news that came out of her signing is the fact that she signed a full-time deal. It's a multiple-year, full-time deal, so she is clearly serious about coming back to it. And that has to be good news for CM Punk fans, because I'm sure he'll stick around longer now that his wife is a part of the grind as well. And it's a huge boost to this women's division. Not like it's gotten stale or anything, like it is constantly the best part of most of these WWE shows nowadays, week to week. But adding someone like AJ Lee creates like just a butterfly effect of dream matches and of these feuds and things that we didn't think were going to be possible. Like it's a huge long list, and so I'm kind of fully expecting AJ Lee to maybe take this women's intercontinental title off of Becky Lynch and then almost do her own version of like the John Cena US title open challenge. Like something like that where AJ Lee could have a new competitor every week, a new person that could step up and just have one-off matches in between longer feuds, I think is a great way to put so many more women kind of on the map, for lack of a better word, but to really give them a spotlight and really introduce them to a crowd, especially like the NXT women. Imagine, someone gets called up for a night to wrestle AJ Lee for the title. Like it's just an instant shot in the arm for all of the women across that roster. It really cool to have her back. I'm excited to see what they're gonna do with the match, with the tag match, with her moving forward now in this full-time spot. I did notice that they used AJ Lee's return to kind of like Trojan horse a Brock Lesnar appearance and match confirmation in, but that whole thing is a couple weeks old now at this point. I don't need to keep bringing up my feelings on WWE going back to Brock Lesnar despite everything that's going on with him. I know in the moment, in the crowds, people go crazy when his music hits, but like I feel like there's a large percentage that is ready to be done with the Brock Lesnar experience. So for me, the less said about it, the better, honestly. We do have the conflict that is WrestlePalooza being counter-programming for AEW All Out, which is one of AEW's bigger shows. And the way they responded to it was AEW moved the start time for All Out. They moved it down to, I believe it's now going to be 12 p.m. Pacific time where I am, so it'll be over by the time WrestlePalooza is starting, which I think is smart. I think the counter-programming from WWE, a lot of AEW stars have been getting asked about it lately, and they've had really good answers. They've said things like, yeah, they better, like they need to be trying to compete with us. Like I'd be disappointed if they weren't. So like the AEW stars are all saying the right thing, but WWE, it seems like they're going to be bringing this to an end. This is supposedly the last instance of counter programming that we're going to have, which is kind of funny given how much of a focus it's been like the last month. But I'm guessing someone finally was able to talk to WWE corporate and be like, hey, counter programming does put more eyes on their shows too. But it'll be a big thing, and this show, the WrestlePalooza, is highly controversial for a few reasons. The biggest reason, I think, is the fact that it's tied to this ESPN streaming service, that if you don't have a cable package, you're not going to be able to watch the show without this ESPN streaming service, which is $30 a month, or I think 6 times more than the basic Peacock plan, where WWE PLEs have been for 5 years now. And so it's a steep an ESPN broadcast of a WWE event looks like, because I kind of get the feeling ESPN ruins just about everything they touch. In a lot of ways, their commitment to just kind of the most mailed-in coverage is something to see. That is for sure. So I'm curious if we're going to start getting ESPN panels before matches. We already started getting the tie-ins to Monday Night Football, and that's incredible. Listening to those announcers try to say things like Brock Lesnar, John Cena in a grudge match, the John Cena retirement tour. So it'll be interesting to see how they integrate it. But to the thought that so many fans just don't have access yet, maybe they're waiting till the last minute. Maybe people really are fed up with the streaming services and not willing to move over. But it's fascinating because this is such a big moment for WWE. And I don't just mean because it's debuting on ESPN and it's going to be tied to this deal and it's such a big partnership. But WrestlePalooza as a brand, this is a huge moment for it, because I'm sure by now you have heard WrestleMania 43, that is 2 years from now, will be held in Saudi Arabia. It's the first time ever for WrestleMania. It's the first major event. Usually those Saudi events are all their own things. They're all self-contained, and they kind of feel just like house shows almost. It's like fantasy booking, where they tell WWE who they want and everything, and they kind of just put it together the best they can. But they announced that WrestleMania 43 will be in Saudi Arabia. That is after WrestleMania 42 was taken from New Orleans and moved back to Las Vegas for the second consecutive year. So that is no makeup WrestleMania for New Orleans. That is no WrestleMania for London or Paris. Two crowds that are absolutely among the best, if not the best, on the entire broadcasting for WWE. I don't think anything hits better than those European PLEs or those European Raws, SmackDowns, any of those shows, really. And so, no, it's going to Saudi Arabia, and I think it is a precedent and it's a tipping point for WrestleMania as a brand. And what I mean by that is a lot of the things people are saying around WWE and about this kind of raising some red flags to me about this becoming much more of the norm. I used to think when they announced WrestlePalooza and they had it the same day as AEW All Out, it was just another example of them trying to counter-program AEW and trying to, be like, look what we can do. We have the star power that you can't match. We're going to go get AJ Lee out of retirement. We're going to do Brock Lesnar, John Cena as our big headliner, two gigantic mainstream stars. We're going to have Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre. We're going to have CM Punk team with his wife. They pulled out all the stops, and I thought it was to counter-program AEW, but looking at this announcement of this deal for WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia in 2 years, and looking at the way they've talked about expanding and ticket prices, and we'll get to that in a second, it's impossible for me to think anything but WrestleMania is going to become a worldwide brand, and WrestlePalooza is going to be kind of presented now as like the US WrestleMania, in a sense, if that makes sense. I really think that they're trying to make WrestlePalooza seem as big as like one of those top PLEs. I really get the feeling with the star power that they've gone out of their way to go get, that they're trying to set this up as a fundamental PLE, and I would not be shocked if this becomes like, well, we have WrestleMania in March, April, but we have WrestlePalooza in September, and that's WrestleMania 2, basically. I'll be really interested in particular to see what the night situation looks like for that Saudi Arabia WrestleMania, if they do night 1 and night 2, or if they go back to one giant card. I think that could be kind of a telling thing too. If they go to one giant card, it leads me to believe that they're going to think that there's another show on the schedule that is equivalent to that, or that provides the same level of star power as a WrestleMania. And so I'm very interested in the execution and the look of this WrestlePalooza, this first one. And that's why I think it's so interesting that they're willing to take such a risk with this. Like, people aren't seeing it or aren't going to see it. Like, if they want this to be an anchor PLE, like one of the big 3 or 4 PLEs, they're going to need it to look and feel like the biggest show possible. And if it's not getting huge ratings, if the ratings report comes out and it's like, yeah, you know, the drop from Peacock to ESPN was over 15 million people didn't watch, like that's going to raise some alarms. This is the first one. This is when interest will likely be at its highest point. People want to come check out the new ESPN WWE agreement. And I'm so fascinated by all the decisions that are going around it, and WWE is in such a weird spot. The Peacock to ESPN transition came out of nowhere, and a large part of some things that I've read about how they handled, like what led to them going to ESPN so early with this deal, why they were then able to re-sign the Saturday Night's Main Event deal with Peacock, but it's not going to be on linear NBC. And supposedly a lot of that is NBC having a poor reaction to the way WWE treated Goldberg and his retirement match and his post-speech being cut off. And then him going on that press tour the week after complaining about how he was treated. I think NBC just kind of saw that and was like, yeah, this isn't worth the headache. We don't need the NBC logo like jammed all over the clips of Goldberg like shitting on WWE for half-assing his retirement, which, you know, you feel that way how you will. Like, you know, I'm not saying that they did or didn't do that with Goldberg's retirement, but if that's true, if the image of that is true, then that's a pretty damning precedent to be setting when you have arguably your biggest star of all time retiring in a couple months. And there was a lot of interest and intrigue and controversy around even his last match, John Cena's last match. Everyone thought it was going to be taking place at a Saturday Night's Main Event in Boston in December. And last week we found out, no, it will be happening in Washington, D.C. Why? Because WWE went to Boston and said, we want a SummerSlam-sized payday from you to have this Saturday Night's Main Event and to host an NXT event and SmackDown and Raw. And Boston said no. They said, we're not spending that much money for this. And so WWE, rather than honor one of their best stars ever in his hometown, said, okay, we're out of here. We're going to DC, which kind of gets my propaganda brain wheels turning too. Like, I hate to think about who in Washington, DC might be sitting ringside come December for John Cena's last match, or who might be trying to make himself a part of the event in some capacity. And I just think it's disappointing. There's just constantly examples of WWE putting their own bottom dollar in front of treatment of their stars, treatment of their roster, treatment of their fans. Like it, and obviously it's a business, so none of this should come as a surprise. I think the surprise to me is just how blatant it all is, how out in the open it all is. Which brings me to TKO COO Mark Shapiro, who went out there last week talking about WWE, ticket prices, the success that they've seen, the revenue they've seen, and he gave a quote that was so asinine that I couldn't believe it was real. I had to look like multiple places to make sure it was a real quote and I wasn't getting fooled or anything. I'm stunned that he would not only admit this, that he would just admit this and say this out loud in the open, like not anonymously, just put his name on it and everything. Here is the full quote from the COO of TKO. So we've seen a meaningful increase as evidenced by the 59% margin we did in the second quarter. Ticket sales and site fees play a big part in driving that. We know we have a lot of room there for growth because Vince McMahon was primarily pricing tickets for families and wasn't totally focused on maxing the opportunity there. We see what we can do with the UFC, and we're replicating that in terms of ticket yields and advanced sales when it comes to on location on the WWE side. We know we have a lot of room there because Vince McMahon was primarily pricing tickets for families and wasn't focused on maxing the opportunity is an insane thing to say. Nothing. You know how easy it is to make yourself look better than Vince McMahon in 2025? Do you know how hard you have to actively be trying to come off sounding worse and more out of touch with things than Vince McMahon in this day and age? That, oh my god, my jaw hit the floor when I read that. So obviously part of the shift to TKO has seen the prices for everything WWE skyrocket. It is not a family thing anymore. It is a luxury item at this point. They want every pay-per-view to be a destination trip. They want the WrestleMania trip to be more expensive than a Disneyland vacation for a family. They want it to be, you are spending top dollar for these things. I've seen horror stories of people spending for the super exclusive VIP packages for shows only to get like seconds of a meet and greet and photo op with a few stars that weren't quite the ones that were advertised, and some like catering food. I've seen horror stories left and right about all of these experiences and add-ons and the cutting corners and the cheaping out, and I cannot believe that this dude went out there and just said basically like Vince McMahon's a dummy because he cared about pricing it so families could go. And we were all about maximizing those dollars, guys. Come on, what are you doing, WWE? There's dollars to be made. And it's just, it's wild to me that we've hit this point where WWE itself doesn't view itself as a family outing, as a family-friendly thing to do. When all of their shows are catered to TVPG and all of the you think about how prominently guys like Jey Uso are featured on the card, where his big appeal is to kids. But they, at the same time, don't want kids being able to go see all of this. I don't understand the logic gap here, and it tees up AEW perfectly too, and they're already jumping on it. Ricochet did an interview with Ariel Helwani earlier this week, and I'm not the biggest Ariel Helwani fan at this point anymore because he has devolved into a lot of kind of just parroting talking points and takes and things, and it feels like he has settled into a role that I didn't expect him to. But he had Ricochet on, and Ricochet offered this perspective on it. He said, in the world, how the world is today, I feel like having a place like AEW, all those families and all those people who may not be able to afford to go to WWE can afford to come to our show and have a good time and experience some new action, experience some new character, experience some new drama, and experience just an alternative to what has been going on for a long time. And that's exactly the note that AEW needs to be hammering home. I think the get-in price for All Out is $51, and I think the get-in price for WrestlePalooza is $350. It's crazy. It's crazy to see the difference in ticketing and in really everything. So I'm wondering if all of this is connected and all of this comes back to the counter programming, and if WWE is realizing we can't counter program AEW because their tickets are 300% less than ours, so if we go on at the same time and fans are put off by these high prices, fans are put off by a 4 or 5 match card compared to, I think All Out has 13 announced matches right now, 12 or 13 compared to 5 for WWE. And I think that they're realizing like we need to go about attacking them a different way, because all we're going to do if we put everything up side by side is give people reasons to point out our shortcomings. So I'm really interested to see where they're going with this, because for a little while there it felt like they were picking up the aggression and they were really trying to hammer the point home, but I think now it's a shift over into trying to make WWE even more of an event, trying to establish WrestlePalooza as an event, as a signature marquee event, and then they're going to go from there, and it's only going to get bigger and more expensive. And I hate to say that because it's a shame to think that people that want to go see their favorite wrestlers just are going to get completely priced out of it. But I don't think they're going to learn or care. I think you kind of see it in the presentation week to week. Do we really need shots of all of the Netflix stars that are in the crowd at Raw? No. Do we really need like all of those tie-ins? Do I need a tweet announcing the NXT anniversary is also like a Triple H on Kill Tony podcast plug? Like, I don't need all of that. I don't need all of this forced synergy that they're putting forward right now. And I don't think they're going to stop it until people stop going to shows. They're going to keep raising the prices as long as people are willing to spend it. That is clear. That is always going to be the case. When people stop spending money, maybe they will stop charging more and more and more. Maybe we'll start to see prices drop down. But when you consider like almost every talking point that WWE has right now is how big their ticket sale gates are. They just said it tonight. I'm recording this Tuesday night. They just said it on NXT. Shawn Michaels and Triple H had a segment in the ring, and Shawn Michaels said something like, I know you're busy overseeing $1 million SmackDown gates and Raw gates and record-setting numbers, but it's good to have you here. It's like, really have to force home. So then when the budget cuts come or the wrestlers get released, it makes even less sense, because you're okay, well, you made a record $1 billion on this event, and you're going to come back and say you can't afford 3 wrestlers that weren't being utilized much anyways. It just all is so, like, everything just works in opposition of itself, and I don't understand how they have gone off the rails so fast under this TKO management. So we'll see. I like I said, I had a lot I wanted to talk about with WWE and their state of things right now. We did, on the AEW side of things, find out how the HBO Max AEW pay-per-view deals are going to go. It's starting actually this month, this Saturday, with All Out. And it's going to be, I believe it's $40 for subscribers, so you get a bit of a discounted rate, and you will get the brand new pay-per-view on HBO Max streaming. Pretty similar to Peacock, it's just not included, which is cool. It's good that you have a bit of a discount. I'm curious to see if it ever hits the point where the pay-per-view is just included. But this is the start. They already have so many of the back catalog on HBO Max, which is really smart for them to do now too, as more and more fans kind of get frustrated with the WWE side of things. And I think that integration is going to work out pretty nicely for them. I'll be curious to see what happens with the pay-per-view buy rate, if there's a huge dent into the buy rate through those HBO discounted prices, or what it's all going to look like. It's all super new. When you consider we're going to be getting numbers from ESPN's app and the HBO Max app and streaming, and like, it seems like the pay-per-view model is basically done for as we know it. I can't see it sustaining much longer, especially next year when Paramount starts showing all of the UFC fights. Like, it just feels like pay-per-view as a model is going to be gone before we know it. And I think that's it. I think that's enough ranting for now on this. I've really wanted to talk about a couple of those things though, so I'm glad to sit down. I hope and appreciate anyone listening. I appreciate anyone listening, everyone listening or watching. If you feel the same, let me know in the comments here on YouTube, or email in. I will always put the email address in the description, the show notes and all that, so please feel free to let me know your thoughts if you're excited about either of these shows more than the other. I will probably post some predictions somewhere. I've been doing them as like kind of like little posts on social media and YouTube rather than like full previews. Because by the time I post the preview, it's like it's a day away, and like no one wants to listen to predictions an hour before the show. So I'd rather just do like the Saturday night wrap-up shows. So I'm going to try to do that this weekend once WrestlePalooza and All Out are both over. So keep an eye out for that. Stay tuned. In the meantime, though, again, thank you so much for watching along, listening, following along. It is really, really something to see. I never expect it, but it's super appreciated, the level of support that just kind of continues to grow. It's really more than I could have ever expected. So sincerely, thank you so much for continuing to to rock with this channel and with all of this. I hope everyone listening has a good rest of their week. Enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy a very good weekend of wrestling lined up. And I will see you after those shows and talk to you then.